The number 1 spot on the demon list is one of the most prestigious things in Geometry Dash. Over the last decade, many players have attempted to bring about the new hardest level, and it's that dynamic that's caused some players and levels to become etched into the culture of the game and its community. Not everyone can achieve that glory though, and some have just gotten plain unlucky in their pursuit of the number 1 demon. Some levels were hard enough to rightfully earn that place, but it was unrealized until it was far too late. These are the robbed top ones. Bloodbath was the defining level for difficulty of the mid-2010s. It took the game's best player over 10,000 attempts and nothing was coming close to nudging it down to number 2. The only levels that had temporarily taken the title of hardest demon ended up being deemed cheated and unrated, leaving Bloodbath alone at the top. One of those very levels was going to be picked up by a player. This is Phobos by GMT Sean and more. Phobos was thought to have been a new number 1 demon until it was found out that the level's verifier Tigresec had cheated it. They attempted to nerf the level to keep it rated, but it was all to no avail and Phobos was left as an empty vessel with seemingly no hope of ever being beaten legitimately. It had extremely awkward gameplay that had never been seen in a top level until it was made. Some examples include the duel and the infamous line, which made this robot portal entry way harder than it ever needed to be. To put it simply, Phobos was a concoction of the most janky gameplay you could conceive in early 2.0. There was a player who excelled at untraditional styles of gameplay, however. He had created the very controversial number 2 demon Conical Depression, which consisted of multiple challenge segments stitched together. It was Kermal, and he was eyeing up Phobos as a potential next step forward in playing. His first run on the level that he ended up getting out of boredom, as he put it, was 38%. It was on the nerfed version of the level from their futile attempt to keep it rated, which most notably took away the dual portal on the last ship part. It was still going to be a massive undertaking though. From here on out, he would end up continuing to pursue a legitimate verification of Phobos. In his next progress, he was able to reach the mini-wave part with 44%. He was pushing steadily towards the second half. Following on from this, he made a huge breakthrough when he was able to achieve 51 to 100 and 51%. Phobos was now completed in 2 segments and the momentum didn't seem to be letting up anytime soon. It was time to lock in and grind the level out. Remember the line I mentioned earlier? It had just come back to bite Kermal within touching distance of completing the level. It's moments like this that make that transition so infamous to anybody who goes for Phobos. He had demonstrated he can beat Phobos though, and it would only be a matter of time until it happened. There was a dedicated community of people who would tune into the streams and will him on in the comments of the progress videos. On May 12, 2016, he would get another push towards the end of the level. Let's see what happened this attempt. After battling finger pains and many unfortunate deaths in the final quarter of the level, Kermal had finally put Phobos to rest. It was now more than an unfortunate hacked remnant of the past and could be viewed in a new light as a legitimate challenge for the game's top players. He would go on to call it by far the hardest level he'd be in when he'd already verified the at the time number 2 demon, so it seemed like it had a chance to be the new hardest demon. That's not what ended up happening though. It would follow in the footsteps of Conical Depression and land at the number 2 spot, so close yet so far from the top 1 recognition. And that's how it would stay for years, with the 2 levels right next to each other and Bloodbath being above Phobos. In March of 2018, nearly 2 years since the verification of Phobos, it would have its difficulty reevaluated, and with that it would be moved above Bloodbath on the list once and for all. In the 6 years since the changes made, Phobos has remained the harder level in the eyes of the community, with much of that probably being owed to the ease of access of higher refresh rates, and the level of ship skill going up considerably in the average player. Nowadays, neither of these levels are even on the list anymore, and the skill ceiling has far exceeded what anybody who played in those times would have thought possible, but they still helped pave the way forward. We're now going to jump forward to the reign of Sonic Wave, a formerly hacked level from the days of Bloodbath and Phobos that ended up being legitimately verified at the tail end of the 2.0 update, and having a chokehold over the demon list. It had already sent back challengers like Erebus, Yatagarasu, Stalemate Redux, and Digital Descent to retain its #1 spot. There was seemingly nothing that could beat Sonic Wave. That didn't stop players from giving it a go, though. Wuxi was one of the best players in the game without a big top demon verification to his name. He'd established himself as a top player off feats like being the first to complete Erebus, and more shockingly, beating the newly verified Blade of Justice in a mere 3 hours to be the first at that too. His speed of learning and beating extreme demons was out of this world for 2017 standards. When the year changed to 2018, he would pick up a level that would go on to be the biggest thing he ever did in this game. The new Mega Collab Crimson Planet that was hosted by True Omega. Crimson Planet didn't follow the meta that levels like Sonic Wave and Yatagarasu set of sustained difficulty over multiple minutes of gameplay. It was opting for compressed difficulty in a barely 1 minute duration. The raw gameplay would have to be of an unforeseen difficulty if it wanted to be the #1 demon. With his first progress of 63 to 100, he was already estimating that Crimson Planet could be just that hard. When he upped that score to 41 to 100, interest in the project started to grow further. With the majority of the level completed from a start position, it was time to go from zero. And so he did, and achieved a run of 46%, meaning he had it in 2 segments. But something was about to shake up everything for Wuxi, Crimson Planet, and the game itself. Nobbleboy had just verified Bloodlust, and it was immediately rated and placed as the new #1 demon. As it stood, Crimson Planet was definitely harder than stuff like the RGB trilogy, but it was uncertain if it could stand above Bloodlust. Wuxi could either buff the level to ensure its #1 status, or stick with the version he had. He would end up choosing to buff it. The new and improved Crimson Planet was far harder and even had a completely replaced gameplay segment, which would go on to be one of the hardest parts on the level. Now it was time to see if the new version was even feasible to complete. Wuxi choked the very last part of the level twice. It was evident he could do it, but whether through a mental block or poor luck, he just couldn't seem to get past those last few bits of straight fly. To guarantee a completion, he would end up making that little bit of gameplay auto, so the next time he got there, he would verify the level. This little nerf wouldn't jeopardize the chance it had at being the #1 demon. While live on stream on May 19, 2018, Wuxi finally got the third chance he was waiting for.
Oh my god, I did it! Oh, I did it! No way! Oh, dude, I did it! Oh my god!
Crimson Planet was verified, and community sentiment was that it was far harder than even Bloodlust. All that remained was for it to be rated so it could officially place #1 on the list and bring about the new era of difficulty. We waited and waited and waited, but that rating it so desperately needed just never seemed to come. It was stuck in limbo as a level those more involved in the community knew to be the hardest, but was left without the official title of hardest demon. Wuxi accomplished his goal, but still failed in a way from circumstances out of his control. As the months went by, hope got so low there was even remakes of the level planned. 10 days short of the level's 1-year anniversary, it would finally happen. Crimson Planet was now rated and could place at the #1 spot on the list. But by then it was too late. Zodiac by Binox had already beaten it to the punch and taken the official role of the level to dethrone Bloodlust. To make matters worse, it was harder than Crimson Planet as well. Knowingly or not, RobTop had taken away Crimson Planet's window of opportunity to be #1. Now we're in 2021 with the era of Bloodlust, Crimson Planet, and Zodiac firmly in the rearview mirror. Tartarus had unseated Zodiac at the start of the new decade after being seen as on the verge of what's possible when it was first released to the community as an open verification challenge. It would go on to be the longest reigning top demon in the game, lasting nearly 2 full years at the top. Throughout that stretch of time, many levels tried to dethrone Tartarus, but we're going to be focusing on Sonic Wave Infinity. SWI started out as a reskin of the original Sonic Wave with the same gameplay that was set to be Riot's version for the race to verify it in 2016. He would end up losing that race to Sunix, who the level happened to be passed to, and he would end up transforming it from a mirror of the original's gameplay to being a super buffed version that would attempt to get Sonic Wave back to the top of the list. When the AP team were brought on to give it modernized decorations, it had successfully transformed into its own thing that could carry on the legacy of Sonic Wave into the future. It would go from unsuccessful verifier to unsuccessful verifier until it reached the hands of Zanny. He announced to the community he was the verifier with a run of 59 to 100. People wished him good luck, but apprehensively with the amount of previous verifiers who'd failed to make much of any progress towards verifying the level. Unlike those other verifiers, he wouldn't stop after just 1 or 2 progresses as he started to chip away at it from zero. Zanny was now the first SWI verifier since Sunix to even make it to the second half of the level. People now knew he was different from the previous verifiers and was likely to be the one to finally get the level out after 5 years of development hell. When he eventually reached 76% from zero, it seemed like the endgame for SWI's verification. 5% of actual gameplay remained and it was getting down to the wire. Whilst it seemed so close, the level had other plans for Zanny.
What? No!
Much like Mafui in his bid to verify the original, Zanny had just died to the very last spam of the level, only a few clicks away from making history. Some saw it as the worst fail in the game at this point in time. After this fail, he would end up nerfing the level a bit due to the demotivation from dying to the last section. He would continue playing the level every day despite what had happened. Everyone knew any attempt could be the one going forward, and after 6 months and over 60,000 attempts, he would end up getting this run. After a minor drama over who would upload the level and a crash trigger in the maze temporarily causing it to be unrated, SWI was set to be placed on the list, and the community was eagerly anticipating whether it would land at the number 1 spot or the number 2 spot. In reality, it ended up being neither of those estimates when it ended up being placed a mere number 3. That was a huge blow to the hype of the level. After years of being hyped up as the game's next number 1 demon, it fell short of the mark by 2 placements. For years, Tartarus would continue to cast a shadow over Sonic Wave Infinity it couldn't seem to get out of. Zanny would continue to insist in his belief that SWI was harder than Tartarus, but it was to no avail, and people chalked his opinion up to being verifier bias. But on May 10, 2023, an interesting change would be made to the demon list. Tartarus was moved below Sonic Wave Infinity on the demon list, meaning the assertion that it was the hardest level ended up not being a lie at all. It really did become the hardest level, but it was far too late when it was realized. Sonic Wave Infinity wasn't the only level that got robbed during the reign of Tartarus. There was another level that some thought of as a modern-day iteration of Crimson Planet, both in good ways and bad. Arcturus started out as a physically impossible level on the impossible levels list. Even in this state, it was clear the level had potential to be more than just a showcase of what hypothetically could be done by a bot. In February of 2021, a lesser-known player named Ultrakawa would show a possible version of the level that he intended to top Tartarus with. It had less than a minute of gameplay, but what was shown was shockingly difficult. The mini-wave especially would go on to be an infamous part for its sheer difficulty. It was no holds barred, pushing the wave and ship to their limits for the time. His progress videos started out with runs to 100 that he would steadily build on to gain consistency, the best of those runs being from the mini-wave to the end. Past that point, more start position runs would bring diminishing returns, so it was time to attempt the entire level from zero. When he achieved 49%, he was already close to reaching the second half of the level, and quickly. The practice was paying off. His next run of 63% was super close to the slow ending part. He was quickly approaching the verification, but he wasn't the only one trying to go for the top 1 spot. He was in a race with Stick, who had Abyss of Darkness, and Trick, who had Firework, to be the first to dethrone Tartarus, following on from SWI failing in the short term. There was a lot of pressure on all involved to be the one to win. The next far run he got could make or break his chances.
No! No, I'm... Why did I die there? No, that's... Oh.
Kawa reached the very end of the level and came up short. Normally that'd spell the end of his chances to be the first to verify one of the top ones, but the other competitors were both getting stuck on their levels. Most notably Stick receiving 2 98% fails on Abyss of Darkness. He still had a fighting chance to get Arcturus out and be the one to dethrone Tartarus. On August 8th, 2021, he had received another chance to do it.
Oh, okay, I verified it. What? I actually verified it. What?
Arcturus successfully beat AOD and Firework to the punch and was set to be the new #1 demon, until it reached the very same pitfall as Crimson Planet before it. Arcturus was just not being given a rating, and so it couldn't place on the demon list. People asked for it to get rated day in and day out on Twitter, but Rob never broke his silence on the matter, and it just seemed like it wasn't going to happen. To make matters worse, Slaughterhouse and Firework got verified after and would end up garnering more attention than Arcturus. All 3 levels would end up being rated together, and all that was left was to see where they ended up on the demon list. Slaughterhouse and Firework took the #1 and 2 spots respectively, but Arcturus was different. It ended up all the way down at number 5 below even Tartarus. It seemed like it too had failed at its goal of being harder than Tartarus, just like Sonic Wave Infinity. After almost a year since its verification, Arcturus would end up getting re-evaluated with new difficulty opinions, and that would lead to it being moved up past Tartarus and SWI, meaning it was the hardest level when it was verified, even if it didn't last that long before Slaughterhouse and Firework came into the picture. If it were rated and placed to where it is now back then, it could have been a far greater piece of the game's history than it was. Firework was a perpetually upcoming top 1 that dated to back when Zodiac was still considered the hardest demon. Like with SWI, many players attempted it and fell short of verifying it. It had been 3 years since previews for the level first dropped, and it was still an unverified top 1 contender. And at the time, unknown player Trick would find a copy of the level on the servers and start giving it a go. Nobody could have possibly predicted how far he'd go with it at the time, but he was going to give it a fighting chance. After all of this steady progress, the hosts of the level and Cherry Team would end up taking notice of Trick, and with the level currently not having a verifier, they decided to give him the right to verify in the official copy of the level. It was really time to grind out the level now that he wasn't just an unofficial verifier progressing for fun. He now had the chance to make Firework the new #1 demon. He would first get 53% to finally break into the second half, and then 60 and 69. Then would end up making the decision to super buff the level to ensure it would be the #1 demon over potential competitors like Arcturus that were also in contention. When he returned to playing from zero, he reached 81, which was in the level's most infamous part, the orb ship. He was so close to verifying, and any attempt could be the one. He just had to continue the grind and it would pay off.
verified it! I verified it! It's over!
Firework was finally verified after 3 years and it was set to place at the #1 spot. At least that's what we thought. The level it was rated alongside, Slaughterhouse, would end up taking the #1 spot over it, leaving it just short of being the #1 demon. Slaughterhouse had also come out before Firework, meaning it didn't win on time either. So many years of work from all involved just to fall short of the goal set out for it. Firework took on a new reputation as a fun level in the top 10, but it wouldn't get to be known as the #1 demon. In 2023, a new revelation would end up changing everything for Firework contextually. The verifier of Slaughterhouse, Space UK, was being accused of cheating. At first, it seemed like Slaughterhouse was in the clear and the only cheated completions came afterwards, but then the bombshell dropped. The Z-Bot watermark was detected in almost every single one of his old completions, and Slaughterhouse was no exception. The verification was a lie. Firework was really the hardest legitimately verified level, and nobody knew it except for Space. It would now be known as a former hardest demon, but it was far too late to undo the damage Slaughterhouse caused for it. A lot has been made of the struggles these players went through with their achievements, but things didn't turn out all bad for them. Kermal would be known as one of the defining creators in the game's history, with levels like Lit Fuse, Heartbeat, Black Blizzard, and XO being seen as some of the greatest that have ever been made. Wuxi was still seen as the best player in the game by large swaths of the community, even when Crimson Planet wasn't being rated. Zanny went on to be a content creator and is still seeing great success with that to this day. Ultrakawa accomplished more incredible feats like completing Tartarus and even beating 365 extreme demons in a year. Trick ended up becoming a mainstay of the top 3 best players on the demonlist stats viewer and even held the #1 spot for some time. Even if robbed at the time, all of these players became a part of this game's rich history and nothing can take that away from them.